Hello and welcome to the Confidence Academy podcast. My name is Lily Badcock and I am a transformational confidence coach and founder of the Confidence Academy Members Club, helping men and women just like you to build unshakable confidence and self-belief. Each week, I will be bringing you new episodes with advice and guidance to help you rebuild lost confidence, manage anxiety, and finally start living the life you were born to live. It is my aim to reach as many people as possible with the message that no matter what you're going through, no matter what your struggle may be, there is hope. And there is a way to create an amazing life for yourself. The incredible people I have been blessed to interview on the show are walking, talking examples of how this is possible. And I truly hope you will find their stories uplifting, inspiring, and motivational. The conversations are very open and candid and occasionally may include some adult language, so please take care when listening around little ones or grab some headphones. This podcast series is brought to you in association with Lily Badcock Confidence Coaching and the Confidence Academy Members Club. If you are ready to make the shift from anxious and frustrated to calm and confident, then visit www.lilybadcock.com today and get started with the free resources that are waiting there for you. I need you to know that you're not alone, that it can and will get easier, and that the transformation you seek is possible. You are more powerful than you know, and I'm here to teach you everything I know about harnessing that power and creating an amazing life on your terms. Before we dive in, don't forget to leave a review for us on iTunes and to check out the links in the podcast notes to the free resources we have available for you. But for now, let's get you on your way to living your epic life, free of anxiety and full of confidence. After all, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it. Hi everybody, welcome to the podcast, and before I get into today's interview, I just wanted to say a few words because I literally just wrapped this interview with my guest expert for this week, an amazing lady called Mary Shores, who is an author, a speaker and an entrepreneur. So I'll let you listen to the episode so you can learn all about Mary and the work that she does. But the reason that I wanted to put this episode out today was because it just seemed so poignant for me personally at the moment, and I just felt like there was a reason why this episode was recorded today, and I've come off the call totally buzzing and totally just feeling like it was all for a purpose and there was a definite reason as to why we chatted today. And therefore, off the back of that, I feel like I can't be the only one that needs to hear what Mary was saying in that interview. And so for the first time, I think ever, I'm actually putting an episode out on the same day that it was recorded. So I'm super excited for you to get stuck into this episode. And as always, I would love for you to let me know what you think. Do leave us a review on iTunes if you get a moment, or, you can just drop me an email if you have any questions or any comments about the show at all. Also, don't forget that we do have the Facebook group. It's totally free. It's just called the Confidence Academy Podcast. You can find it on Facebook, or you can click on the link in the show notes. And in that group, you can obviously chat to me at any time, but you can also connect with any of the guest experts that you hear on the podcast. So Mary being one of them. So do get over in there and obviously continue the conversation on as well. But just before we get into that episode, I just wanted to say that just recently I've been reading and listening to and hearing a lot about this concept of being confident and trusting in who you are at your core. And through a lot of the things that I've read and a lot of the exercises I've personally been doing as well, I've realised that for all of the goals I was setting and for all of the things I was trying to call in, and all of these things that I felt were so far out of reach and were so far away, I've realised that they were here the whole time. And that there was actually nothing for me to achieve. It was already here. What was missing, though, was my permission to let that be enough. And I hope that makes sense. But what I mean by that is, you know, I would always make excuses as to, you know, the things I'd created in my life. If somebody had said to me, oh, but look what you've got, look what you've already got, I would have had a list of reasons as to why that wasn't good enough. And I think underneath it all was just this belief that before we can succeed, there has to be this massive struggle, and that, you know, that we don't get to figure it all out in the first place, and that we have to go on this epic journey of discovery, like, you know, like you see in the movies, like Forrest Gump. We have to go running around the world before we realise who we are and what our purpose is. And I'm realising more and more that it's not necessary. Plenty of people have those stories to tell, and they're amazing and they're inspiring and we love hearing them. But it's very, very possible that the things you wish you had in your life are already present. It's very, very possible that the thing you're searching so hard for is already right there under your nose. You just may not have realised it's there, or you may not have given it the credit to be that thing, because maybe it feels too easy for you. Maybe you're thinking on some level, well, that can't be it because I didn't work hard for that. Well, that can't be it because that's always been there. How could it be that easy? Surely there has to be struggle. So I just wanted to share that with you before we get into today's episode, because that's an epiphany that I've had just this week. And as I said, you know, I wanted to get that off my chest. And then following this interview that I just did, it all ties in with what I talk about with Mary. And so I really feel that you need to hear this today. So I'm sharing it with you today. So as ever, thank you so much for being a listener on my podcast. We've just tipped 56,000 downloads on the podcast, which is phenomenal. We've only been going since November 2017. So that's absolutely phenomenal. Please keep listening, please keep sharing, and definitely let me know if there's a specific topic that you would like us to cover, if there is a specific person that you would like me to interview. I'm now thinking the sky's the limit. I would love to get someone like Alicia Keys on this show because I listen to her songs all of the time, and I think, you know, like, why wouldn't she want to be on this podcast? Hey, you know, who wouldn't want to be on it? So if there's someone that you would really like to hear from, if you know someone with an inspiring story, or if there's someone whose work you really love, maybe they've written a book, maybe they write songs, maybe they write plays, or, you know, whatever it is, then let me know. Send me your suggestions. Tell me what you want from this podcast. I'm here to serve you. And do let me know if you have any ahas and if any of these episodes are helpful for you, because I love hearing it, and I especially love feeding back to the guest experts as well. Just before I go, don't forget that in April, we launched the Confidence Academy Members Club. So if you love the podcast and you would like some additional support with your own journey, and you want access to the guest experts and additional training and additional accountability in the private Facebook group that we have going on, there are weekly coaching calls. There's ongoing accountability. And if you would like to be involved in that, then click the link in the show notes or head over to my website, lilybadcock.com, and just click on the Confidence Academy Members Club. It's only £25 a month. It's an absolute steal for everything that you're getting. We've just started doing monthly goal setting. So at the start of every month, we review what the month before was like, and then we set goals for ourselves for the month coming. And I say ourselves because I do this work alongside everybody in there, so this definitely isn't a case of me sitting up on a throne saying I know everything. I'm doing this work with you as well, and I'm holding myself accountable as well. So if you would like that additional support and you want to get it at that low price, which was the founding members price of just £25 a month, which by the way will remain locked in. So even if the price goes up later, it wouldn't go up for you if you got in at that price. Then click the link in the show notes, join us over there. We are going to start inviting guest experts in from this month. So from June 2018, there will be guest experts coming in to do special masterclasses and additional trainings for all the members in there. So that's all of the admin out of the way. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoy this episode, and my thanks again to Mary for being such an amazing guest. Remember, guys, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello, welcome back to the Confidence Academy podcast. My name is Lily Badcock, and today I am talking to author, speaker and entrepreneur Mary Shores. Mary, welcome to the podcast.
Hey Lily, it is so exciting to meet you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very, very welcome. And I'm so excited to learn more about your story. So, Mary, as I said, is an author, and she's written a book called Conscious Communications, which we will talk about a little bit today. And within that book, Mary outlines a 5-step process which took her from breakdown to breakthrough. So, we're not going to go fully into all of those details on this call today, but we are going to give you an outline. And as with all of these episodes, any links that are relevant, we will put into the show notes. So do go ahead and click those notes at the end if there's anything that you want to go ahead and check out. So, Mary, as I said, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for giving up your time to be here. Just to kick us off, could you just introduce yourself to the listeners and give us an overview of your story and how you came to do the work that you do, and maybe a little bit about what's behind your book and the story involved with that as well?
Sure. Well, I feel like I'm truly a rags to riches type of story in that I have been out on my own since I was 16 years old. And I actually suffered through a lot of early childhood traumas and tragedies that were really plaguing me for the first 20 years of my life. And I think that people get super fascinated with my story because I was able to overcome those things and start my first business at 24. And so that was 20 years ago. And now that I'm 44, I'm realizing that like my whole generation of people, a lot of them are just now starting their business where I've already got 20 years of that experience, as well as just like my own personal passion for personal development and spiritual growth and development led me to just have so much universal knowledge that I really wanted to share with the world.
Amazing. So you started your business age 24. That's incredible. And as you said, I mean, I turned 40 this year, and I've been in business for a good few years, but I feel like I'm only just now realizing, well, certainly only in the last few years, realizing that you get to marry your passion and your purpose to really create the business that is going to come from your soul, rather than something that just pays the bills and kind of gets you to work. So, I mean, that's quite unusual to find somebody that figured that out age 24. I mean, I don't think I had anything figured out age 24, if I'm honest. So that's really, really incredible. And so is that what the book is kind of the culmination of? It's just you pulling on all of your experience from those 20 years uh, into the book to help other people that might want to do a similar thing.
I would say that the book is actually even much more than that. It's
Mm.
almost a personal development program right in a book. So there's a starting place where if you want to grow yourself into the highest version or reach the highest potential, there's things that I believe that we just don't teach our children anymore.
Mhm.
We're not teaching them how to see life as a journey and as a path and to tap into that purpose, as you said, that when we can uncover more of those things and step fully into who we really are, who we were meant to be, we can have miraculous things happen. And I think that just like we were talking about on the call before the show, it's like when you see someone that's created a lot of success in their life, sometimes it can be hard to understand that that person had a starting place too. And
Mm.
so my starting place came from a lot of tragedy. When I was 20, my daughter passed away from a very severe brain damage that had been incurred at birth. But I was able to be resilient through that situation and start a business. And so over the years, I continued to thrive through a set of circumstances that most people would have turned them into a statistic. And
Mm.
so it's like, well, how did I do that? And as a matter of fact, I was recently involved in a documentary series where a woman was studying resilience called the Global Resilience Project. And she took 50 people that she had discovered throughout the world and literally interviewed them and found the common thread of what had made them resilient. Well, we can all take these traits and apply them to our own lives, so that whatever it is that we're trying to get through, understand that it's part of our journey, it's part of our experience, and it was given to us for a reason. And maybe we don't understand that, but if we can just follow a starting place, like take one step in a new direction, just do this one thing, that can lead us to the next thing. So in the book, each chapter has a coaching exercise, and each exercise builds on to the last one.
Amazing. So back when that happened to you, and I'm so sorry, I mean, you know, I'm sat here now, as you can see, I've got Sophia on here, who's becoming a bit of a star in her own right on this podcast. But obviously, as I'm sat here holding her, I can't even imagine what that was like. And I know that the people that listen to this podcast all have things that they're struggling with of varying degrees. And so some people listening, well, like even that, they'll just think, oh my goodness, you know, the thing I'm struggling with doesn't even compare. So, you know, that might be enough just to let them realize that if you can do that, they definitely can too. And then there will be people listening, I'm sure, who have been through something similar. I actually do know someone who went through almost exactly the same thing. And it's just absolutely so hard to get your head around. And I'm astounded by the woman I know, and I'm astounded by you and by everybody else like you who has faced something like that in their life, and not only has been able to come through it. I'm not going to say that you ever get over it, because I'm sure you don't, but you've found a way to bring purpose into your life. You've still found a way to, you know, make your life count. And I know that the person I know would say that that's how she honors the memory of her daughter. And so I just want to know, like, in that moment, was that based on information or experience that you had already got? Like, were you a spiritual person before that, or did this all come about because of that?
You know, I think that my spiritual journey has unfolded over time. You know, like in each decade of life, it looks very different. So when I was 20, my aspirations or goals in life look very, very different. You know, when you're 20, you're just kind of figuring things out. And I had already, as a teen, like I said, I'd been on my own since I was 16. So I was working on basic survival. And the thing that I want to say to add to what you were talking about, like with myself and my friends and anyone who has suffered through something, that trauma that we go through is not necessarily about the thing that happened. So we definitely have a tendency to look at someone else's trauma and measure it according to our own. But the truth is that, you know, anything that's happened is actually in the past. And so the trauma, the importance of trauma, the impact of trauma is how it is shielding you, or how it is showing up and impacting in your present day. Right. You know, so when you can process things, when you can move forward anyway, or when you can understand that the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves will very likely become our identity. And so when we tap into those tragedies, you know, it's like we get to be in control of how we allow that to impact us in our present day. And so I think that that's the important key, and the important understanding into the journey of healing, because I feel like a spiritual growth is also a journey of healing. It's the soul's journey to get back to itself and to reconnect with itself. And that the thing that all the stuff that happens is about our body, like the anxiety, the fears, the sometimes just feeling like you're stuck. You know, that's all a manifestation of how the trauma from the past is impacting our present day. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's a really key point you brought up as well, because I think people do compare. It's human nature, isn't it? And I think it's not always a good thing, because, you know, whether you're comparing yourself and thinking, you know, for example, I know myself, when I was diagnosed with anxiety, I used it as a stick to beat myself with, because I was telling myself that I didn't get to feel anxious. Like, what did I have to be anxious about? Because I knew that I knew people in my life, and there were other people around who, in my mind, had been through something that would warrant a reaction like that, or that would warrant some, you know, depression or something, like you could understand it. And so I was kind of using it as a stick to beat myself with, by saying, almost like, you don't deserve to feel these feelings. And I think that, while that's true, I mean, you hear people say it all the time. You can look around the world. There's always somebody better off than you. There's always somebody worse off than you. But the truth is, it's when it's happening to you, it's your experience. And like you just said, it's something that's happened in the past, and you get to decide what you're going to do with the moment that you're now living in. And whether you look around and you want to, compare to 100 other people and decide that, that yours is much worse, or that yours isn't even close, or whatever kind of result you come up with in your mind, it still counts that you still get to make a decision about how you move forward in your situation. Because actually, whilst it's true to say people have it better, people have it worse, or whatever, you're the one living your life, you're the one in your situation, and you're the one that still remains in control of that, even when it feels like there's no control whatsoever. So it's a really good point you make. I'm just going to scoop the baby off the floor. I was really hoping she might have fallen asleep, but she's just learning to roll over. So she's totally...
Let me, while you are taking care of the gorgeous baby, let me read a little excerpt out of Conscious Communication that I think speaks to our conversation here. I love this excerpt. It's something that a fan had wrote to me, and she posted it on her Instagram. Mm-hmm. It's quite beautiful. It's page 158 out of Conscious Communications. The chapter is called Becoming Who You Really Are. So it goes like this. I know it's easier said than done, but what if, as an experiment, you tried to be happy just by becoming who you really are, just living it and stepping into it? To get to who you really are, you have to shed layer after layer of the person, of who you've been pretending to be, layers of the person that you know deep down that you are not. You're shedding layers of your problems, layers of self-judgment, layers of how others have judged you, shedding layers of unworthiness, fear, worry, and unnecessary responsibilities, and layers of beliefs and challenges around what other people think you are, or even worse, think you should be. So when I think about these things that we've been discussing, it's like, that self-judgment is really a problem, and the way that we're always comparing ourselves, when really the true journey back to healing, the true journey is to become who you really are and to step into that authenticity. I was just speaking at a yoga retreat over the weekend, and one of the participants said that during a Vedic astrology session, that the astrologer had told her that one of the most powerful keys to manifestation is authenticity. And I thought, I love that concept, because it really goes with the concept of alignment, like really having your life in alignment. Well, how can we truly be in alignment if we are judging ourselves nonstop? And it's like, the thing is, we weren't given those skills as we were growing up in the culture that, and even though we're in different parts of the world, we have similar cultures where it's really more about the accumulation of material things versus having a journey to discover who we really are and the power that lies within that. So when I think about this importance of the authenticity of becoming who you really are, it is the shedding of those traumas, because it's the trauma that causes the anxiety. It's the trauma that put the body in a state to produce a state that creates the anxiety. And when we peel back, and one of the people that I listen to, he says you have 40 layers of these skins. So like every time one of these things happen, you create another layer of skin, and it creates a shell around yourself. And every time we peel back one of those layers, we're getting closer to who we really are.
Yeah, I love that. And I think as well, it's true to say that that in itself can bring up anxiety, because lots of people don't feel like they're enough, like they're like who they are at their core. They feel like, oh, it's nothing much, or maybe, maybe my family wouldn't approve, or maybe, or, they, like, we have all of these rules and lists as to why that wouldn't work for us. Mm-hmm. And that in itself can bring anxiety. And I think this is what puts us into this resistance. It's into the, like I've definitely noticed with myself and with people I've worked with, that even when they've got all the answers, like even when they know exactly what to do, they still won't take the action. And they will say it's because, or even I will say, you know, there's a valid reason for that. But actually, when you dig down to the root of it, you're just afraid. You're afraid of what that means. And I realized, you know, I like to do a lot of journaling, and I find a lot comes up when I journal, because once I get through all of the kind of conscious surface stuff, that's when I start to dig up what's really going on. And with one of my biggest struggles, I realized that on some level, I was kind of happy with that, because as much as it sucked, I had a belief that everybody has to struggle, and that if that was going to be the worst it got for me, then I was going to take it, because there are people with far worse going on. And I almost had this belief that, you know, if I let that struggle go, maybe something much worse is going to come along in its place. So as miserable as it's making me, and as stuck as I feel, and as frustrating as it is, and as much as I know that this isn't who I'm supposed to be, or the experience I'm supposed to be having, then maybe I'll just take it anyway, though, because I'm a little bit scared of, you know, I didn't even know who I would be without it. And that was a massive kick in the face. When I dug that up, I was like, oh crap, like that goes deep. Like, who even knew that little belief was hanging out under the surface there? You know, you go into these things, you think the issue is one thing, and then you realize that actually, you know, it's just a symptom of a deeper belief that you've got. And you said it earlier, but you know, it's a reaction the body has created, that anxiety, because at the root of everything, you somehow think you're not going to be okay in whatever kind of way that might look for you. And obviously everybody's experiences are different, so not being okay looks different for everybody. But if at any point you feel not okay, anxiety will show up, because that's your natural human reaction. This is what keeps us safe, after all. So I think that's awesome. So just, I mean, we will talk more for sure, but just because you read that beautiful piece out from your book, if anybody right now is thinking, okay, I need that book, which is what I'm thinking right now, how would they go ahead and get that? Is there a link, or, you know, what's the best place that they can go to purchase the book if they want to?
Well, if your audience is in the UK, it is available on the Amazon UK as well as Book Depository, and it should be pretty easily found wherever you can buy books, because it was published by Hayhouse, so that's an international book publisher. So I definitely can get it from Hayhouse UK, or excuse me, Amazon UK, also Hayhouse UK, under the title Conscious Communications. And I wanted to, before I forget, because I really love what you were saying about your belief about struggle. So in actually this very same chapter of Becoming Who You Really Are, one of the sort of like self-reflective exercises that I went through was choosing an archetype for myself. And who I chose was Scarlett O'Hara. And Scarlett O'Hara is a character from Gone with the Wind. She's very strong, right? And I resonated with her because I felt like she was so business brilliant, and she was beautiful, and she had all of these things going for her. But at the same time, her life was always a constant struggle. You know, she always had one tragedy after another that she was seeing her way through. And although she was really resilient and she had that inner strength to get through that, it was always a fight. And I saw that as a reflection of my own life. I mean, so even though I had these early tragedies, I was still recreating them in my present day, like through whatever daily struggles that I was having. And one of the things that I found very fascinating was I could just choose, as a part of becoming who I really am, I could just choose a new archetype. And so I decided to choose Dorothy, because Dorothy had the power all along. You know, Dorothy had the power within her, and she also had the unconditional love and support of the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, and the Scarecrow. And I realized how much that I wanted that to be the source of my archetype. And that got me, like, even that little exercise got me a little bit closer to who I really am at my core.
Yeah, I love that. I was going to say exactly the same thing. In fact, I was going to ask a question around it, because I think it's this, and I think it's, you know, as more and more people are waking up, and as more and more people are talking about self-development, you know, it's all over social media now, whereas 10 years ago, most people would never have heard about self-development, and it was a very sort of under the radar kind of thing to be doing. Whereas now it's kind of becoming almost like a popular thing to be into. But that concept of like, you're already this beautiful soul, you already have the power, like you said, like Dorothy does. And the question I wanted to ask you was, in your experience, did you find that through this work there was suddenly a moment where everything clicked and you were like, oh, okay, now I know who I am, now I know the path I'm on? Or was it more a case of one day you just realized that actually you'd always been doing it, you just hadn't realized, and that, you know, that actually the things you were trying to call in were already right there, but because your perception was that they weren't, you were overlooking them?
So it's a combination of both of those things. So one is your issue of perception. That's very true. And in Sanskrit, we talk about this as avidya, Avidya.
Mm-hmm.
Avidya means lens of perception, or lens of misperception would be more accurate to say. So it's like, are you looking through the world through rose-colored glasses? You know, you're seeing the world much better than it is. Or are you seeing the world through smudge-colored glasses, meaning like the world is a negative, scary, violent place to be? Or are you seeing the world through a lens of perception that is clear, meaning that you have true knowledge or gnosis? And so I find this concept very fascinating. But also the other part of that is like, it was both of those things you said, because as the aha moments come, as the epiphanies come, if I have 40 layers of skin that I'm shedding, it's like in each one of those layers, it's a new aha moment. And so a lot of times you think, oh, I've been through that. You think, okay, I'm there, I've arrived. And then the next thing happens. And it's this cycle of you're always peeling, always growing, always getting closer to who you are. But each one of those moments feels like the epiphany that you think you're finished. And I have not, in my 44 years, gotten to a point where I'm finished. And as a matter of fact, what I would say is that the more open that I've become to it, the closer that I am always getting to, and it speeds up. So one of my things that I say all the time is that everything you say, everything you do, every word that comes out of your mouth, every action you take, every choice you make in the thinnest sliced moments of life is either creating a deeper connection or it's driving a disconnection. So if we can think of our journey as a series of daily choices, that we're always choosing to create a deeper connection or drive a disconnection. And that can be interpreted through many things, like I'm choosing a deeper connection to myself, to my higher self, to my career, to my relationship, to my wellness. You know, it's all these series of choices. And so the more that you choose in the direction of who you really are and what you really want, the more you're disconnecting from all of the choices that actually pull you further away from that, you know, because we all know what it feels like to be pressured into doing something that we don't really want to do. Or if we're entrepreneur, we understand the feeling of being pulled in so many different directions because we don't want to lose out on any opportunities. So we've got our energy flowing in so many different directions. But the truth is that it's much better to triple down on one thing and focus on that one thing versus being pregnant with 17 different things.
Yeah. No, I can totally relate to that. And I think the people listening will as well, because I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this. Obviously, we're called the Confidence Academy. So there are people listening who struggle with anxiety, with depression, with stress, with all of that. But also it's in a lot of cases, and in fact, probably in most cases, the confidence piece comes in as well. And something I'm always saying, which I say more for myself first than anything else, is you will be confident when you're on path. Your anxiety will lessen when you get back on path, when you fall back into alignment, and when you realize what your purpose is, what your passion is. And it's not, you know, when you say that, then people go, oh my God, so now I have to figure out my entire life purpose before I can get rid of this anxiety. But it isn't really that, because, you know, your soul always knows. And what I realized, like for me, was that singing was something that would alleviate those feelings of anxiety almost like a flick of a switch. And I know there's a lot of research around that says singing is good for anxiety because it releases certain, endorphins and all the rest of it. But I truly believe that in my case, the reason singing is so powerful is because it's so central to everything I do. It's the language I speak. It's just, for me personally, the singing is what I'm meant to do. And the further away from that I got, the more anxious I became, and the scarier the world was, and the less I kind of knew what I was doing in any situation. So I think singing can be transformational for a lot of people, but I think specifically if it's always been something you've loved to do, and it needn't be singing. I mean, singing is my example, but my point is, when we were kids, and when you didn't have bills to pay, and when you didn't have sort of perceived responsibilities, you just got to get up and be a kid. You would choose to do certain things that would bring you joy, that would bring you, that would light you up, that you would like to do. And that is the clue, I think, that, like I said, you always knew it. You came here already knowing, you just didn't know that you knew. So in my case, I was always performing, and I was always putting on little shows, and actually I haven't really changed. It's just I get paid to do it now, and I'm playing with adults instead of kids. But yeah, it's funny to look back and go, oh, actually, I had all this figured out age 6. I just didn't know. So I've been on this massive journey trying to discover myself, when the whole time, which is why I asked that question earlier, because that was the case for me. And I love what you said. It's so true. You get your little epiphany and you're like, oh my God. And then the very next epiphany is, oh, I was doing that all along. I was looking for this big kind of sign, this big change in my life. And actually, maybe big change didn't have to happen. Maybe I just had to be okay with who I was and realize that it absolutely was enough, and it absolutely is beautiful. And you absolutely can succeed and be happy as that person. And that just because somebody else might be doing it and it looks totally different, doesn't mean that's your blueprint. It just means they found their thing, and when you find your thing, you'll feel the same way.
When I think about what you said, it's so true. And I have a practice of what I've taught people. This was coming through me very strong at the beginning of the year, but it's to be grateful for your natural skills, gifts, talents, and abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we have a daily gratitude practice of those things, what we're doing is we're strengthening the neural network in our subconscious mind that allows those things to grow in our life. And I think that that's just very, very important, because that is really what our true purpose is, whatever that is. Like you said, it doesn't have to be singing. It can be chocolate chip cookies. It can be dancing. It can be the work that you do. And you can find, and it's like, let's say you feel like you have a job that really isn't in alignment with your purpose. But when you think to yourself, what am I good at? And then you just find a way to apply that to your current job situation, you can still build that neural network, you can build that talent. And then what happens is you synchronistically attract other opportunities to you that will match up to that talent. Another thing you said in that was talking about confidence, and Confidence Academy being the name of the podcast. And what I love about that is I've been going into a practice of teaching about empowerment lately, because empowerment has become a buzzword, especially with the Me Too movement and women's empowerment, like this concept of like women rising strong through their empowerment. And what I want to say about that, which I think this is very, very important, and I want to relate this to a spiritual practice, and even taking it further to like law of attraction, and taking it into the concept of manifestation. Because I used to hear these spiritual teachers talk about that the most important thing is how you feel. And I would feel somewhat disconnected by that, because I wouldn't feel in control of my feelings. It's like my thoughts and my emotions are in control of me, not the other way around. And so again, it's time to accept that. And so this is the way that I can teach your audience how to tap into this power of this, like being authentically empowered, is like, if you ask yourself at any given moment, how well do I feel right now? Just how well. It's not necessarily how healthy, how well do I feel in my life? And if that, recently when I did this, my answer was a 7. Now, this was a 7 on a scale of 1 to 20.
Okay,
So
right.
So 7 sounded good for a minute until I said it's a scale of 1 to 20.
Right.
So 7 is a disempowered state. And the thing is that I believe that the time we should be creating, the time we should be manifesting is when we're in that state of empowerment. So when we're at, say, like a 15 or better, that's the time we should be creating and manifesting, because everything you create from a state of being of empowerment is going to show up stronger, faster, better, and be more impactful and longer lasting than versus the other state. Because the disempowered state is when you are at a state of being of fear, of anxiety, and everything that you create from that disempowered state is going to be stressful. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be problem, and it's going to feel like you're moving through mud just trying to survive. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's very important that we step back, and when we are feeling in that disempowered state, because it's going to, it's going to ebb and flow. It can even change in a 10-hour period. That when you're feeling that disempowered state, this is the time to step back and take the concept of self-care, and maybe even self-care as just meaning taking space for yourself, that, and not to create anything right now. And then what you'll find is after a couple days, that number will start to grow, that level of emotion on your frequency scale will start to grow. And when you get into an empowered state, this is very much the opposite, where you feel very confident, inside, outside, backwards and forwards, how to move forward. It's almost like you have a vision of a plan that just lays forward in your head. And when that happens, that's the time to take action. That's the time to take that step in a new direction. And really the things that you manifest during that feeling state will, like I said, it'll be more impactful. It'll show up faster, stronger, better. And I just wanted to share that with you and your audience.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to ask a question actually, because I know this has come up for me before, and so I know it's going to be coming up for people listening. With the concept of self-care, which for anyone listening, if you don't know what I mean by that, it's this idea of, that it isn't selfish to put yourself first. And actually, not only is it not selfish, but it's necessary, because when you're not able to refill your own cup, as it were, it's much harder for you to then give out to other people in your life. So I know with me, I've always been someone that likes to give. And when I had my big, what I call wobble, or more like a breakdown, it was because I wasn't doing anything to refill my supplies. I was just giving. And I wasn't allowing myself any time or any space to reconnect with what I wanted to do, or to reconnect with my thoughts, my desires. And I felt like it was selfish to even try. So I know when I went for hypnotherapy at first, and my hypnotherapist said, why don't you try yoga? My first response was, oh my God, that's 90 whole minutes just for me. There's no way I could do that. Like, are you crazy? And not only did I feel like I couldn't do it, I genuinely couldn't even see how I would fit that into my day, because I'd packed my day out with everything else that everyone else needed, answering emails, seeing clients, looking after my kids, sort of being with my husband, and, and all the rest of it. So for anyone listening to this thinking, who's in this anxious state, and who's in this place of, no matter how much I try, I'm not moving forward, or no matter how much I feel like I'm moving forward, then yet again I start back at square one, and I have to start again. What would you say to those people who are going to find it really difficult to let the anxiety rest for a minute while they get back into their space, and they allow those thoughts to process, and they maybe allow themselves time to journal, meditate, or do whatever it is they need to do? What would your advice to those people be?
I think that healing is a choice. And it's an authentic choice. It's a vulnerable choice, but it's a difficult choice, because we don't have the time in our lives, because we've created lives that are so overwhelming, and we have ourselves at capacity all the time. Well, what happens with women especially is we do that. And then when we hit about 40, we start to have adrenal issues. And when you have the adrenal issues, you begin to suffer with fatigue, and you don't feel like you're yourself anymore, because you can't your body can't move, or you start to manifest these other strange illnesses such as fibromyalgia, MS, autoimmune deficiencies and issues. And these things are debilitating. So what I would say is you can listen to your body now, or you can do what I did and wait till your body shuts down for you. So that's what happened to me, was I didn't listen to those things, and my body shut down, quite literally. And now I am more on a healing journey. So in the chapter 3 in my book is all about this. It's all about self-care, but it teaches it from a way that we understand our bodies will not function without it. So even like as I'm seeing you care for your little baby, you know that if you went and put your daughter down and you ignored her, you know that the physical effects that would have. She would be screaming. And can you imagine if you did that for 3 days? If you went and you put that baby down and you walked away for 3 days, what would happen?
Yeah. Well, she'd just.
If she would even survive it, we don't know, right?
Yeah, but no, exactly. Yeah.
It's the same thing, it's the same concept of ourselves. Like, we have certain needs, and it doesn't have to be a yoga class. It doesn't have to be something that you need to make time for, especially in the beginning. So I've got like a lot of suggestions of things you can do in the book, but sometimes it's just going for 20 minutes and soaking in an Epsom salt bath, because we know that the Epsom salts are going to pull out the toxins. But the problem here is that even if you don't think that you're suffering from this, we live in a time where we have notifications constantly going off, like through our phones, our computers. It's like we can't get away and just have space for ourselves. And so I think that the concept of self-care can be overwhelming. And that's why I'm boiling it down, saying it's just taking space for yourself. So even if that means I shut my phone off, I'm not going to look at Facebook or any text messages for 3 hours. Like, the world is not going to end if you shut your phone off for 3 hours. Or I'm going to get in the bathtub with some Epsom salts and a candle, and I'm going to lay there for 20 minutes, and you can set a timer. And you can lay there with your eyes closed in the candlelight and just allow those Epsom salts to pull out the toxins. If you are someone that... for me, like, I go to the chiropractor. That's part of my self-care routine. And even though it's like a doctor's appointment, I know that it's beneficial for my body. And so I use that time as like, this is something that I'm doing for myself. Even in the morning, I will take my banana and my cup of coffee, and I'll go sit out on the porch and just stare like outside and watch people walking by. So it's just taking space that I'm not trying to fill up every moment of every day talking to someone on the phone or texting someone or looking at Facebook.
That's so true. And I mean, that's definitely something I need to do personally. And I really feel the effects of it. If I think I don't naturally go for that. I don't naturally, and I think a lot of women would relate to this. You don't naturally think, oh, when you're mapping out what you have to do in a day, it doesn't come naturally to a lot of us to go, oh, so where's my time going to fit in? It's more like, if you find 10 minutes at the end of the day, it's a bonus, and you may or may not do something productive with it, or you might just flop into bed early. So that definitely resonates for me personally. So I'm sure it will for people listening. And it's so true, isn't it? And I think, I'm so guilty of this. I'll wake up in the morning, and literally, even before my eyes are open, I'm thinking, oh God, I have to check my phone, because what if somebody's emailed me, or what if there's a message, or something that I started yesterday, like what's the outcome of that? And it is this fear, it's this anxiety state of, if I don't hang on to that, it's all going to fall apart. And it was funny, because I was speaking to somebody on the weekend who was extremely anxious about something she's going through in her life. And it was very easy for me to see what she was doing. And it was very easy for me to give her advice and to say, well, how is that anxiety working out for you? Because I was telling her, you need to let go, you need to trust a bit more, and you need to, just chill a little bit, because this anxiety isn't good for you. And it was so easy for me to say that. And then as I kind of drove away, I thought, God, I could really do with taking that advice for myself, because we grab on so tight because we're afraid if we let go. I don't know what we're afraid of. I don't even think we get that far in our thinking, but maybe we feel like it's all going to fall apart, or, in this person's case, she was beating herself up saying, if only I'd done this and maybe I could have done that. And I was like, well, but you know, even if that's true, what can you do about that now? It's, you know, it's something you might have done in the moment. It goes back to what you said at the top of the call, that you only have this moment to deal with. You know, you can look back and, you know, I'm sure on a million things that you did in the past and go, oh, that would have been a better decision in that moment. You know, if only I hadn't gone that way, or if only I hadn't made that choice. But really, all you ever have is now. And so you can either choose to sit with the anxiety more, and how's that working out for you? Or you can choose faith, and you can choose trust that you're on a journey and it is divine and you're always okay, and that maybe you can let go. And even if you fall, it doesn't have to mean it's the end. It doesn't have to mean that you're going to crash and burn. Maybe you'll land on a ledge. Maybe you'll take off. You know, I was watching something once, I think it was Steve Harvey, and it made me laugh because he'd obviously just recorded some kind of family TV show. It was like a game show. And apparently something happened at the end where they had a bit of time to kill. So he just leapt up and went into this massive preaching session about how afraid we all are to take the leap, and how for so many of us, we spend our whole life standing on the edge of a cliff and we don't ever leap off, and we watch everybody else jumping off around us and we never leap because we're afraid that if we jump, we're going to hurt ourselves or get cut up or scratched or worse. And his whole point was, you're not going to know unless you take the leap. And to bring it back to what we're talking about, you're not going to know until you let go, and until you choose faith, even if it's scary. And that's the only way you're going to soar. And maybe you'll drop to begin with. Maybe you will bang your head or scratch up your clothes or do something. But know that as long as you're stood on the edge of that cliff, you will not soar. You have to take that leap. And it just made me laugh because you could see in the audience, they'd obviously just gone for this game show. They were sat there going, what is this? Like, what? Have we come to church? Like, what is this guy talking about? But I loved it. And I was like, oh my God, that's so powerful. I'm sure it was Steve Harvey. And I just remember sharing it all around everywhere when I heard it. And I was like, my God, how true is that? Like, you know, we think we're so safe, you know, we're all wrapped up, and really at some point you're just going to have to take the leap. You're going to have some faith.
The thing is, and that's all very true, but when someone is in the disaster, when someone is in the breakdown, those kind of words can seem almost like it's another planet. Mm-hmm. So if you've just gotten the diagnosis of your child, or you've realized you've just lost your job, those kinds of words don't always help.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, so absolutely.
That's why I wrote the thing that does help is, like we were talking about, having the 5 steps to break through your breakdown. And from a neurological, like, by the way, those words are very inspiring. And when we are not in despair, we can take those things in and we can see how beautiful that those things are, because we can see that it works. But the problem is that when you are in a panic, your brain does not process those words the same way. So when you're in a panic or some sort of trauma has just happened to you, you're in a state of fight or flight, and your brain cannot be in both problem solving mode and fight or flight mode at the same time. So what you have to do is find a way to get yourself out of panic and into at least neutral. And so I have this process, and anyone can find it. I have a blog. It's also in the book, but it's called 5 Steps to Break Through Your Breakdown. And I'll just go over the first step with you because it's really, really simple. And this would be like advice you could tell your friend. If you are in a situation and you feel overwhelmed and life seems very complicated, the very first thing that you can do for yourself is you can simply write a list of all of your problems, every single problem. And I did this myself a couple of years ago, and I had a list of 20 things on the list. And the research shows, actually it was Matthew Lieberman from UCLA that did a research project that shows that our brain very much likes lists. And when we take the time to name what's bothering us, we automatically create dopamine and serotonin. And so we'll start to feel better. And as we start to climb out of that feeling in despair because our dopamine and serotonin levels rise, what happens next is we start to activate the problem solving areas of your brain. And so we can do something, because writing a list is not overwhelming. You know, like trying to solve your problem is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then you just start to feel like, I can't solve this problem. I can't. But if I say, just write me a list of everything that is a problem in your life right now, that is something that you can do. And then without even trying, you're writing the list and your brain starts to react by creating that dopamine and serotonin.
I love that. That works even. I mean, I've heard that advice just from a business point of view. I've never thought to do it in the way that you're describing though, but I can see how that would work, because your brain, like when it's all in your mind, your brain feels like it has to keep reminding you. This is why people wake up in the middle of the night in panics, because they've got a million and one things they think they have to do, and their brain thinks they're not going to get it done. So it will wake you up in the night and go, oh, do you remember your skin? Do you remember that? Remember that you've got no money? Yep, good. I'm just letting you know. Do you know what I mean? So something I've always done, and I've not heard that, you know, that concept you just shared, but I guess it must come from a similar place that, you know, I now sleep with a notepad by my bed. And if I'm feeling anxious before bed, I will just write down everything that's bothering me, or everything I feel like I have to do, or even just anything that's in my head. Even if I'm just thinking, oh, I might have chicken tomorrow for dinner, like I write it down until there's nothing left in my brain, because there's just something about putting the pen on the paper that lets your brain know it's okay now, we're not going to forget, because it's written down and it's a real tangible thing. And now perhaps we can schedule that into a diary. And I often find when I do that, and maybe this is because it's releasing, what did you say it released?
Serotonin and dopamine.
Right. So maybe because those things are being released, that even in the writing of the list, I often will come up with solutions, not always, you know, hard and fast solutions that are going to get rid of the problem completely, but at least something which means I get to live another day, or like I get to get through the next moment. And I get to say, oh, well, okay, so maybe that's some way that I could deal with it. So that's really, really interesting. And for sure, we'll put the link to that 5-step process in the podcast notes. Did you say it's in the book as well? So if they get the book, they'll
Yes,
get taken through.
I think it's in chapter 6 of the book. So, and like I said, each chapter has wonderful instructions and exercises that are just on that level, but it'll take you through all of the steps. And I loved that one so much that I even wrote a blog so that if people didn't get the book, they could still get the blog. So if we haven't sent you the link yet, Lily, I will have my assistant send you the specific blog link for that particular
Fabulous. Yeah.
those steps, which are all easy to do. And each one of the steps is backed by neurological research.
Fabulous. And I think it's so important just to get started from wherever you're at. So, you know, the people that are listening, I know there are people who are in great despair, through to people who maybe are just in a bit of mild panic around something at the moment. But it's just true to say that you can get started right now. You said earlier, it just takes one step in a new direction to completely get you on a new tangent, and you can completely turn a situation around, or at least see a way through it, or at least see how you're going to move forward in spite of that, and thrive in spite of the fear or the anxiety that you may be feeling. And so I think, you know, we're very, very fortunate, and I'm so thankful that you've come on to share this with us and to share your wonderful book. I'm going to go and download it as soon as we get off this call, because it sounds right up my street. And I highly recommend that you guys listening do the same thing as well. And by the way, and I'm saying this because I know this is how my brain has worked in the past, when you are that overwhelmed, even just getting a book can just seem not overwhelming, but you might be telling yourself, oh, well, what's the point of that? You know, I've got all these issues, like, how's a book going to help me? It's the start. I mean, if I hadn't read the first bit of self-development that I picked up 5 years ago, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I'm sure you would say the same thing, Mary, that if you hadn't just read that first thing, or listened to that first podcast, or, you know, taken that first step in that direction, you know, it opens the door to so much else. And the thing is, you may not always be able to see the outcome. You may not always be able to see the full staircase, but you take the step anyway, because you know that in this moment where you're at isn't where you want to be. And so if you want to make the change, then make the change and do something different. And if that just means clicking the link and going through the 5-step process or downloading the book, then that could be the step that you then look back on and you go, oh my God, that's when I started shedding my 40 layers of skin. And maybe things have come up since, but you know, I can still remember the day when I sat in my chair riddled with flu and decided on top of everything else that I was going to reevaluate my entire life, like my entire business, and why was I even doing any of it? And that's what got me to the question, if you had all the time and all the money in the world, what could you still not go a day without doing? And that's when I realized that building confidence is something I've always done, and it's something I always will do. And it just sparked a little thing in my head that was like, oh, okay, because I thought I was a singing teacher. I never realized I was a confidence coach until that moment. And I've learned a bajillion lessons since then, and I'm sure there are a bajillion more to learn. But I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, thank God I opened my laptop that day. Thank God I clicked on that link, and thank God I read that little ebook or whatever it was that I was reading. I don't even know what it was now. And this is the same thing. You might look back on this moment and go, oh, I remember when I listened to Mary on that podcast, and then I read her book, and it opened my eyes to this whole new way of thinking and this whole new way of seeing my situation. So, you know, really, what have you got to lose? You know, in the very worst case scenario is you'll be the same place you are now, but the chances are you won't. The chances are you'll expand your mind, you'll grow, you'll learn, and then you will make better choices because you'll be better informed. And that's what it comes down to. So yeah, absolutely incredible, Mary. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Lily.
I'd like to finish with the question that I always ask everybody, which is, if you had a megaphone and the ability to reach every anxiety sufferer in the world right now, what would you want those people to know, and what would your inspiring message to them be?
Well, definitely circling back to understand that healing from trauma is so very, very important. And that from an epigenetic or genetic standpoint, you know, we are creating mutations in our DNA just by suffering through trauma. And so giving ourselves a chance to heal from that is so vital to our success in health, wealth, and love, and everything else. And the second point of this would just be a quote from Conscious Communications, which is, awareness of your choices is the keys to freedom.
I love that. So true. And it is true, because I'm saying all the time that confidence is yours as soon as you choose it. And it's so true. And you can feel so disempowered by anxiety or by circumstance. But the truth is, you do have those choices available to you. And even when you feel completely powerless, there is still a choice to be made. And it may not be the choice that you want, but there is always a choice. And I think when you become even aware that that's the case, it can open up so many doors and so many possibilities. So that's a perfect way to finish the call. Thank you so much, Mary, for being with us. If people want to connect with you, how do they find you online? What's the best place for them to go?
Well, if they download our free gift, the Daily Desires Diary, which is a fun daily practice that I encourage all of your listeners to get, that will sign them up for my weekly newsletter, which they would get a free coaching exercise every week from that. On Facebook, I have a Facebook group. It's called Fearless Ambition. And so anyone is welcome to join that. It's a great way to interact with me. You can post in that group if you want to know something, if you're reading the book. Also, I have my website, maryshores.com, and that's SHORES, which I'm sure you'll link to. And I always tell people, you know, if you're curious about the book, to go on Amazon or wherever you like to buy your books from and read the description. And I know in the US on Amazon, I've got lots of reviews. I don't think that there's as many UK reviews. So that's an invitation, Lily, for when you finish the book to please put a review for me.
I'm all over it. Yeah.
I appreciate that so much. But I just think if you just read the description, you'll know right away if the book is for you or not. And I'm happy to come back on the show after you've read the book and we can chat it up.
That would be amazing. Yeah, that would be, I'm seriously going to go and download it now. It sounds just what I need. So I'm very excited about that. And yeah, as Mary said, we're going to put all of the links to the places online that you can hang out with Mary if you want to. I've also invited Mary to come into the Facebook group that's attached to this podcast, so the Confidence Academy Facebook group, where you'll be able to tag Mary in any questions you've got or any comments that you might have about this episode as well. So make sure that you join us over there. Once again, the link is in the show notes. So it just remains for me to say a massive thank you to Mary once again for being here with us, for sharing your amazing insight, your amazing story, and I can't wait to read that book. We will definitely get you back on the show to talk about that once I've finished it. I have a feeling it won't take me long. I tend to devour books.
That's wonderful.
So we'll get you back in there. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for being here as always. And remember, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it. I'll be back again very soon with another episode. Wherever you are in the world, take care of yourselves, and I will speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
And that's us done for another episode. I hope you are now feeling uplifted, inspired and motivated, and ready to start making those positive changes starting today. If you love this episode and would like to connect with me or any of my amazing guests, then get on over to the Facebook group and join the conversation there. And for additional support and accountability, why not become a member of the Confidence Academy Members Club? You will find all of the relevant links in the show notes beneath this episode. Plus, I am so excited to announce that the Singing Club is back. This is my amazing 8-week program for people who have always wanted to learn how to sing. Singing has been and continues to be one of the main ways in which I keep my own anxiety at bay. I believe almost anyone can learn to sing, and if it's something you've always wanted to do, then you just have to be part of this next round. The program will run live via a private Facebook group where you can get feedback and support from me and the other group members. And the best part is, when you pay for this program, you are a member for life. That means that every time I run the course, you can come through it again and again as many times as you like, regardless of how many updates and price changes there may have been. Head on over to lilybadcock.com for the full details. In the meantime, I'll be back again soon with another new episode and more amazing guest experts. But until then, look after yourself, dream big and live bigger. And remember, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it.